Once during dinner, Jack's wife Emily suddenly brought up how bored she felt staying home in the evenings. Jack, feigning surprise, responded, "You find it boring with our kids? Emily, you hardly see them. They're with their grandparents now. When they were home, I dropped them off at school in the morning, and you'd see them for just 15 minutes in the evening. They'd return on their own, or I'd pick them up when you got back from work. They'd already have eaten and be getting ready for bed. Tell me, do you find it boring without them? This is the time when they're growing and changing, and later you might regret not spending enough time with them. Why would I regret it? They'll grow up and move on to their adult lives. I'm not asking for much. I just want to go to a cafe after work today. I don't need you there." Then I disagree. You can't stop me. I want to spend time with my friends. I know them. I'm not sure about that. I'm against you going to the cafe. We plan to visit our parents this weekend. Where are our kids? Never mind. You can go alone if you want, but I'm afraid this will end in divorce. Jack left the table and went to the bedroom. Emily tidied up the kitchen, took a shower, and entered the bedroom to find Jack gone. The next morning, she found him in the kitchen drinking coffee. He asked directly, "Have you changed your mind about going to the cafe with your lover?" "What lover? Do you mean Daniel?" Emily was taken aback that Jack knew who had invited her to the cafe. Though nothing had happened yet, she indignantly replied, "That's nonsense. Daniel is our department head, and that's why you have lunch with him every day. Tell me, who pays for those lunches?" "Whatever you say, I won't change my decision." 20 minutes before lunch, Emily was in the office with colleagues from her department, including Daniel, who was sharing engaging stories. Suddenly, an attractive woman entered and asked, "Who among you is Emily?" Emily, caught off guard, weakly responded, "I'm Emily. And who are you?" "I'm Victoria, your husband's lawyer." "My husband's lawyer? I didn't know he hired you. He wants to know how you prefer to get divorced, through the registry office or in court. I recommend the registry office. It's much simpler. Going through court will be more expensive and time-consuming. Why does he suddenly want a divorce?" "Well, you're going to the cafe with your lover and then to a hotel. Daniel, I believe, has booked room 630 on the 6th floor. Why didn't my husband tell me this? He told me yesterday, but I didn't listen. And now, in 20 minutes, he's meeting with Daniel's wife. I don't know what they'll discuss." Prino, who had been listening, exclaimed, "What will he talk about with my wife?" "I said I don't know, but I assume he'll discuss the same thing you talked about with his wife." Victoria looked at Emily and continued, "While you decide how to divorce, here are samples of the lawsuit and a proposal for dividing the property. Review them and call me. If you decide to divorce through the registry office, let me know. I'll arrange a meeting with your husband." She handed Emily the papers and left. Daniel sat frozen, gasping for air like a fish out of water. He pleaded with Emily, "Emily, stop your husband." Colleagues quietly left the room. Emily stood in shock, clutching the papers. Her thoughts raced, and her heart pounded. She remembered her argument with Jack, his mention of divorce, and her own stubbornness. Now, facing the lawyer and Daniel, who no longer seemed attractive, she realized the gravity of the situation. Daniel spoke again, his voice trembling. "Emily, you have to stop him. If he talks to my wife, it will be the end of everything." Emily turned to him, her gaze cold but panicked inside. She didn't want a divorce or to lose her family, but admitting her mistake to Jack was unbearable. "Why should I do anything? You set this up. You invited me to the cafe and even booked a room. You thought I'd just agree." Daniel stammered, "I just wanted to spend time with you. You said you were bored, that your husband didn't understand you." "I never said I wanted to cheat on him," Emily snapped, her voice shaking with anger and hurt. "You misunderstood everything, and now it's all falling apart." She checked the time. Less than 20 minutes remained until Jack's meeting with Daniel's wife. If she didn't act now, it would be too late. She decided to call Jack. "Jack, we need to talk." "About what?" Jack's voice was cold and distant. "Have you decided how we'll divorce and divide our property?" Emily felt a lump in her throat and replied, "No, I don't want a divorce. I was wrong. I won't go to the cafe with Daniel. I don't want to lose you." There was silence on the other end. Emily gripped the phone tightly, her knuckles white. "Jack, can you hear me?" "Yes, I hear you." "Emily, one call isn't enough. You said you wouldn't change your decision. You chose this path, so how can I trust you again? I was foolish. I didn't think about the consequences. I don't want to lose our family. Please give me a chance to fix this." Jack was silent again. Emily heard his heavy breathing. "All right, I'll think about what you said. But this doesn't mean I'll just forgive you. I don't know if we can save our family. I've already moved out my things and have my own plans. I'm not canceling the meeting with Daniel's wife because I know this call wasn't made because you changed your mind and love me, but because he insisted. That's not true. No one forced me. Maybe you just don't trust me anymore." Emily ended the call and turned to Daniel. He looked at her hopefully and asked, "Did he cancel the meeting?" "No, and neither will you. Leave me and the other girls alone. Never try something like this again." Daniel nodded, disappointment in his eyes. He concluded, "My wife will kick me out today. I'm going to pack my things. I won't work here anymore." Emily left the office, feeling the stares of her colleagues. She felt ashamed, but also relieved. She understood she had lost something precious, but had a chance to fix it. Now it all depended on Jack's decision. Before leaving, she informed her colleagues she wouldn't be in that day. They agreed to cover for her. Emily got into a taxi and gave the driver her address. Her hands trembled and her thoughts raced. She knew she had made a huge mistake, but was determined not to give up. She couldn't just let Jack and her family go. As she drove home, she tried to gather her thoughts on what to say to Jack when she saw him. She wanted to prove she truly regretted her actions and was ready to fight for their relationship. When she entered the apartment, her heart raced even faster. She noticed Jack's car was gone, meaning he had likely gone to meet Daniel's wife. The apartment felt empty and cold without him. She went to the bedroom and saw the closet half empty. He had taken his things. Emily sat on the bed, feeling tears well up. She took her phone and called Jack again. This time, he didn't answer. She left a voicemail. "Jack, I'm home. Please call me. I know you're angry and I deserve it, but I'm willing to do anything to fix this. I love you. I love our kids. Please give us a chance." Emily put down the phone and closed her eyes. Memories of their life together flooded her mind. How they met, their plans for the future, the joy of their children's births. She couldn't let it all crumble because of her foolishness. An hour later, the phone rang. "Hello, Emily. This is Victoria, your husband's lawyer." Emily's heart sank. "Hello. What's going on?" "Your husband wants to meet you tomorrow morning in my office to discuss the divorce details." Emily gripped the phone tightly. "Victoria, I don't want a divorce. I want to save my family. That's not up to me, Emily. I'm just following your husband's instructions. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Come to my office. The address is on the card I gave you." The lawyer hung up. Emily put down the phone and covered her face with her hands. She knew tomorrow's meeting could be the final straw, but she couldn't just give up. The next morning, Emily arrived at the lawyer's office, dressed in a suit, her hair neatly styled. Inside, she felt broken. Jack was already there, his expression unreadable. Emily sat across from him, avoiding his gaze, and said, "Jack, I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. But I want you to know I'm willing to fight for us. I'll do anything to regain your trust." Jack remained silent, his gaze fixed on a single point. "I understand one conversation isn't enough, but I'm willing to go to family therapy, make changes in our lives. I'll prove to you that I'll never make such a mistake again." Finally, Jack turned to her. His eyes were tired but no longer cold. "Emily, trust is the most important thing in a relationship, and you broke it. How can I be sure this won't happen again? That there won't be another Daniel tempting you with a cafe and a hotel room? I know I can't just regain your trust, but I'm willing to work on it every day. I love you, Jack. I love our kids. I don't want to lose our family." Jack was silent again. The room was filled with tension. "All right, I'll give you a chance. But this doesn't mean everything will be like before. We'll start from scratch. And if you break this trust again, it's over." Emily felt tears well up. She nodded, unable to speak. Jack continued, "I won't set any conditions or monitor you. Whether you communicate with Daniel or go out with friends is your decision. I won't be a watchdog. You said you don't need me at the cafe or restaurants. You claim that once you make a decision, you don't change it. I won't communicate with Daniel. Besides, as he said, he'll have to quit his job. I don't know the reason, but I'll find out on Monday. I have one friend, and I only talk to her on the phone. If we need to meet in person, I'll invite her to our home. I'm giving you complete freedom. What you do with it is up to you." Emily felt a pang of guilt and shame. She understood her words and actions had hurt Jack, and now she faced a long, difficult journey to rebuild their relationship. She nodded, holding back tears, and quietly said, "Jack, I understand. I'm willing to do anything to regain your trust. I realize how wrong I was, and I never want to hurt you again. I love you and our family." Jack looked at her. His gaze was stern but no longer cold. He sighed and said, "All right, we'll try. But remember, Emily, this is your last chance. If something like this happens again, I won't even discuss it. We'll just divorce." Emily nodded, understanding that her words meant little now. She had to prove her intentions with actions. She quietly asked, "What about the kids? When can we see them?" Jack's tone softened. "They're with my parents now. We can go see them together today. But, Emily, I want you to understand, the kids aren't a way to keep me. If you want to save our family, do it for us, not for them." "I understand. I want to be with you, Jack, and I want our kids to grow up in a complete family." Jack nodded and stood up. "All right, then let's start small. Today we'll go see the kids. But, Emily, I can't promise everything will be like before. Trust needs to be earned." "I know. I'm willing to work on it." They left the lawyer's office together. Emily felt her heart ease slightly. She understood the path to rebuilding their relationship would be long and difficult, but she was ready to walk it. She loved Jack and her family, and now had to prove it with actions, not words. As they approached the car, Jack opened the door and said, "Get in, let's go. We won't stop at the mall." "Why not? Let's get a new pump for your parents' garden. You promised." "I already bought it. It's in the trunk. I won't even ask about the vodka. You wouldn't forget that. Otherwise, Grandpa will complain about driving around for nothing. But you didn't get any wine. What will I drink with your mom?" "All right, we'll stop at the mall. We also need some smoked sausage." Emily got into the car, feeling hopeful. She knew she had made serious mistakes, but was determined not to give up. She couldn't just let Jack and her family go. As they drove, she tried to gather her thoughts on what to say to Jack when she saw him. She wanted to prove she truly regretted her actions and was ready to fight for their relationship. Jack and Emily stopped at the mall to buy wine and some groceries. Then they headed to the village to see Jack's parents. The drive wasn't long. Throughout the journey, Jack wondered if he had made the right decision by giving Emily a second chance. On the other hand, the kids needed both parents, and he understood that. He couldn't comprehend why Emily had wanted to go to the cafe with Daniel. Throughout their marriage, he had never denied her anything. He was even starting to build a cottage, though he hadn't told Emily about it yet. He didn't want to take out a mortgage, believing he could manage with his own funds. Over the years, Jack had saved some money and made wise investments, all without compromising the family budget. This allowed them to take their first family trip to Turkey. Today, however, the problems were more down to earth. Upon arriving at his parents' house, Jack promised the kids a night of fishing. When they heard this, they grabbed shovels and ran to the garden to dig for worms. Meanwhile, Jack finished installing the pump and tested it for watering the garden. There were two 200-liter barrels filled with water from the well, which was used to water the garden in the evening. The house had central water supply, but Jack's grandfather insisted on using well water, claiming it was cleaner. He said, "Our well water is clean, with a natural spring. The water from the tap is rusty and smells like metal. We only use well water for cooking." In the evening, after preparing their fishing gear, Jack, Emily, and the kids headed to the lake. The evening lake greeted them with silence and coolness. The water reflected the last rays of the setting sun, and the distant rustling of reeds could be heard. Jack, Emily, and the kids found a comfortable spot on the shore, started a campfire, and prepared for a night of fishing. The kids eagerly carried the fishing rods, discussing who would catch the most fish. Jack, while the kids were busy, decided to check the fishing tackle. He sat by the water, his thoughts returning to Emily. She stood nearby, helping the kids, and their eyes met occasionally. Jack felt there was still tension between them, but they were both trying for the kids' sake. He sighed, approached her, and quietly said, "Emily, let's talk." She turned, slightly surprised, but nodded. They moved a short distance away so the kids wouldn't hear. Jack continued, "I know things aren't perfect between us, but I want you to know I'm trying for us, for the kids. I don't want them to suffer." Emily looked down, her voice trembling. "I'm trying too, Jack. I know I made a mistake, and I'm ashamed, but I want to fix it." Jack looked at her, and a warm spark flickered in his eyes. "I know, and I believe we can make it work. We're strong, right?" She smiled, and her smile held so much warmth that Jack felt the weight on his heart begin to lift. At that moment, the kids called them to the campfire. Genry had already baited his hook and proudly showed off his skill. Nicholas, the younger one, looked at his brother with admiration and immediately asked for help. Jack and Emily joined them, and together they started fishing. The night by the lake was magical. The stars shone brightly in the sky, and the campfire cast warm glows on the water. They caught small fish from time to time. Jack and Emily sat side by side, and gradually, what seemed lost began to return. They talked about the kids, their future plans, and how they would build a cottage in a new place. "I want to build a house. Not just any house, but a place where we can all be happy. Where the kids will have their own rooms, and we can gather as a family. I've already taken some steps in that direction. We've been allocated a plot of land, and I've saved some money. I don't want to take out a mortgage." Emily looked at him in surprise and then smiled. "That's wonderful, Jack. I had no idea you were thinking about this. I want our family to be real, to be together." She took his hand, squeezed it tightly, and whispered, "Thank you for giving us a chance." The next morning, when they returned home, Jack felt something had changed between them. They were closer, and though there was still much work to do on their relationship, he knew they were on the right path. The kids, tired but happy, ran ahead, telling their grandfather about their adventures. Jack and Emily followed, holding hands. In that moment, Jack knew his decision to give Emily a second chance was the right one. Family was the most important thing he had. And with that, the story ends. Reflecting on it all, it's worth noting that there was no actual infidelity, but it was a wake-up call. Whether Jack made the right decision remains to be seen. What do you think about all this? I'd love to hear your comments.